Hello, and welcome to this overview of new releases that I read that were published in June of 2025. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. First up is An Innocent Kiss by Alexa Aston. This is a historical romance and book three of the Captivating Kisses series. Perry is an earl who has gone to war and come back to take up his title after his father passes away. Drusilla is the daughter of an earl who is supposed to debut next season, but uninterested in marriage or babies. But they happen to meet each other in the country in the off season and fall in love. It's a pretty predictable sort of tale, but I love these quiet, easy romances, especially when the guy is the one to fall first. I love seeing all the men who join this extended family become friends, and I love that Drusilla gets to live nearby her sister and cousin in the country. What Happens in the Highlands by Anna Bradley is a historical romance and book one of the Cairn Cross Castle series. Catriona is the oldest of three sisters and in a precarious financial and social situation with smugglers trying to attack her home and the local village accusing the sisters of witchcraft. And then Hamish makes everything worse by seeking some treasure that her father supposedly has stashed somewhere. Except there is no treasure, and Kat certainly doesn't trust Hamish. It's a wild goose chase mixed with a tentative truce, which will surely get worse when Kat finds out that Hamish is responsible for the first boat of smugglers. While the romance is resolved at the end of the book, the plot is still at a cliffhanger. I'm hoping there's two more books in the series since there's two more sisters. And isn't it convenient that Hamish has two best friends? The Four Engagement Rings of Sybil Rain by Hannah Brown is a contemporary romance and a follow up to Mistakes We Never Made. Well, Sybil is basically a chaotic mess, and she's been doing her best to clean up her life after her disaster of a wedding weekend last year that did not actually end in marriage. Her friends have encouraged her to cash in on those honeymoon vouchers, so she's off to a resort in Hawaii to spend a few days relaxing. Except she runs right into her ex fiance Jamie, who's there for business reasons. Totally awkward, and she spends a lot of time failing to avoid him. It's messy and full of terrible communication as she makes up a fake boyfriend to save face. Honestly, for a lot of this book, I wasn't even sure if Jamie was going to be the guy she ends up with, especially when her other ex fiance, Sebastian, shows up. We deal with a lot of Sybil's hangups in relationships and how she is probably a lot less confident than she outwardly appears. Great side characters in the form of a friendly concierge and a friendly bartender. Definitely an enjoyable read. Look Before You Leap by Virginia Heath is a historical romance and book two of Miss Prentice's Proteges series. Lottie is an absolute hoyden and has a penchant for borrowing horses and riding recklessly through the park. Unfortunately, she runs into a very grumpy guy one day in the park, and they're immediately at odds. Even more unfortunately, she's his aunt's new companion, and she sees him again at his country estate. Guy is resistant to society after an embarrassing incident involving a public rejection of a proposal many years ago and is generally irritated at having house guests. Lottie and Guy spend most of the book hating each other and then finally calling a truce and then finally giving in to their attraction. But Lottie is always aware of their different social stations and doesn't see a future with Guy. It's messy and chaotic and full of meddling older women. Coming in Hot by Josie Juniper is a contemporary romance and book two of the Frontrunner series. Starts off with a steamy one night stand between strangers who meet at a hotel bar, but it all turns bad when Natalia realizes that she just slept with Klaus, her best friend's boss and racing manager for a team she will probably end up writing about in her new job as an auto magazine journalist. To make things worse, he tries to pay her money after their encounter. Ouch. We drift along a scattered timeline as they cross paths throughout the racing season all over the globe, with some of the events overlapping with the previous book of the series. Everyone's got issues here, with Natalia's sense of abandonment after her parents left her with an aunt at age 7, and Klaus's grief over his late wife's death. High on the steam once they start hooking up again, but it's angry, bickering banter all the way through. My favorite part of the book was Natalia finding out what happened to her parents all those years ago. Negative points for using the word clean when Natalia asks if it's okay to have intercourse without a condom. Her Tempting Traitor by Caroline Lee is a historical romance and book two of the Surprised Heirs series. All the humor and hijinks you'd expect in a Caroline Lee historical romance. Gabby's the next one on the case, this time involving a man who may be a traitor to the crown and a castle full of animals, including a pregnant elephant. Since Gabby is trained in the veterinary sciences, she is assigned to infiltrate the castle, except she knows that she won't be taken seriously as the doctor, so she has to have her twin brother pretend to be the veterinarian. And so they go and they meet Cassian, who's struggling with his failed mission, his injuries, and a son who is resentful of him. Luckily, we all know Cassian is not actually a traitor, but it's fun to see Gabby come to that conclusion. Lots of bonding between Gabby and Gus, who's Cassian's son, and some soul bearing bath time fun. Funny and steamy as expected. Slow Burn Summer by Josie Silver is a contemporary romance. I would say the romance in the story takes a back burner to the main plot, where Kate is playing the public role of in the place of an anonymous author who has written a love story. She's a recently divorced mother of a university student and she really needs a job. So she tries to get in contact with her previous acting agent. The old agent Jojo has passed away, leaving his son Charlie to take the job. For the most part, Charlie is a totally professional and supportive colleague to Kate as she finds herself in crazy situations in her new author role. I feel like the romance comes out of nowhere a little bit, but it still works okay for me. I was much more interested in Kate's life with her family and friends and how she deals with her newfound fame. All's Fair in Love and Pickleball by Kate Spencer is a standalone contemporary romance. This book had so much good banter and flirting, and it was such fun to read. Bex is the owner of a financially struggling racquetball club, and one of her favorite clients has fallen and broken her wrist on the courts. Of course, that old lady's nephew is some hotshot tennis star who's grumpy about his injured aunt and having his own struggles in making a tennis comeback. Nico and Bex are delightful to read together, and the angry flirting is top notch. And then somehow they become pickleball partners, fake dating partners, and so much more. The community of all of Bex's retiree friends in the sleepy little Southern California town is so much fun to read. I pretty much could not put this book down. It was a great time. Eliza and the Duke by Harper St. George is a historical romance and book two of the Doves of New York series. Eliza is searching for one last bit of adventure before she marries a Viscount to gain her inheritance, and she just so happens to run into an injured Simon at a club where she is not supposed to be. Turns out Simon is secretly an underground prize fighter, plus has some dealings with a crime boss in Whitechapel. He and Eliza cross paths again when he's on security detail for her family, and she does her very best to convince him to take her on a night of adventure. I loved seeing these two get closer together and the yearning that they have for each other, in spite of the impossible circumstances. Super flirty and steamy, and loads of caretaking involved here. I loved this book so much. Worth Fighting For by Jessie Q. Sutanto is a contemporary romance and book five of the Meant to Be series. This one is a modern day Mulan retelling, but instead of a gender swap, Mulan just assumes her father's name Zhao in the course of business negotiations with Shang and his family. We've got a company buyout situation with an old school, traditional, patriarchal whiskey distillery where Mulan needs to prove that she's the man for the job. We get a lot of slapstick humor here with her trying to impress everyone at a ranch, and definitely a lot of awkward situations ensue. We have meddling aunties and misogynistic uncles everywhere, but at least Shang isn't like the rest of the males in his family. Cousin Mushu definitely brings the spark of humor to the story and was one of my favorite supporting characters. This was a clever and funny retelling here with fade to black romance mixed in. Never Been Shipped by Alicia Thompson is a contemporary romance and a follow up to Thompson's previous book, With Love from Cold World. We have a defunct punk rock band asked to join a teen drama revival cruise to perform their one hit wonder that was featured on the teen drama's prom night episode. And Micah is having all sorts of feelings about it because she's the one who broke up the band. Meanwhile, her childhood best friend and ex bandmate John is also feeling apprehensive about the trip because it's super obvious to all of us that he was in love with her all those years ago, but stayed firmly in the friendship territory. This book had so much emotional angst and longing. Watching the band reunite was so much fun because they had to catch up with each other on their time apart. The romance between Micah and John was both sweet and super steamy. And of course, the cruise ship comedy was really entertaining. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found a book or two to add to your TBR. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.